In this video I want to consider whole school literacy, and the biggest danger of course of doing whole school literacy is that it's a bolt-on exercise that you're doing just for some random observer who's coming in, and that's not what this video is about. This video is about improving your students' writing, and why should you do that? Well, to improve the results in your subject. And if your subject is one that doesn't use writing, perhaps this video isn't for you. But if your subject does include writing, this video should solve a lot of your problems. There were a number of aims to our training on literacy. So the first one was to explore the literacy placemat, and to kind of Ofsted proof your lesson, you would always have this resource available. The ideal, if you're a subject that includes a lot of writing, would be to have it perhaps taped to your desk, or rather your students would have it taped to their desks so they could constantly refer to it, or you'd use it as a resource to give out when they were doing writing. We explored a literary resource, that's the placemat again, and looked at different ways that you might use it. Then, as a third one, I wanted to give you a definition of literacy, which we'll look at in a minute, so that it's more than just looking at students' writing. Fourthly, the next learning walks will focus on literacy, and they'll be in March and June. They may well have other focuses, but it's literacy that will definitely be examined in both. And then finally, I'd like to introduce you to the So That learning objective. And very often, if you visit classrooms, you'll see learning objectives which are records of what the students will do. But that should really be the first part of the learning objective. Once you explain the reason why, so that, the purpose of the activity becomes explicit to the students. And being explicit, as you will see, is what literacy is about. This is the definition of literacy I'd like us to think about in the future. It's not just about the students' writing. It's about making the implicit explicit. In other words, we know exactly what it is the students have to do to perform brilliantly in our subject, but we're not always brilliant at making that explicit to the students because we assume a level of knowledge that they might have, but often don't. And the way round this, the way to make it explicit, is to model exactly what you want. And it's this modelling that's the key to unlocking your students' learning. I've stolen this definition from Jeff Barton, a head teacher and English teacher who many of you might have come across in the Times Educational Supplement. And it's the title, or the subtitle of this book by David Didow, who acknowledges Jeff Barton's influence. This book, incidentally, is largely English-based in the first half, but the second half is rewarding to read if you're looking for ideas to improve writing in your subject. I was really interested during the training in the idea of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So the first thing I asked you to do was to come up with 5 ways of using the literacy placemat if you were extrinsically motivated by Ofsted. Next, I asked you to come up with 3 ways that you would use the placemat if you were intrinsically motivated, and I defined that by making your students brilliant in your subject. And when I got the feedback from you, I asked you to list your best ones from each go, and it was very interesting to find that I got more best ideas from the extrinsic motivation than the intrinsic. I'm not really sure how to interpret this. Tentatively, I would suggest that we're more scared of Ofsted than we are excited about developing students as brilliant learners, but that's only a tentative suggestion. Next, we looked at 5 connectives that could easily transform the writing and talk of students in your subject, and you came up with ways to use these. so that your students would become better communicators in your subject.